Hello there. Welcome into a Wednesday edition of the show, but it feels like a Friday edition of the show. Hopefully, you're well off to your holiday weekend. I will be once this show is over. Well, kind of. I have switchbacks tomorrow night, but you don't care about what my plans are. You're worried about your plans, but I appreciate you tying me into at least your plans for the rest of this Wednesday, whether you're listening on air, online at extrasports1300.com, or whether you're listening on the Extra Sports 1300 app. That's not a good sign. Stumbling over my words. I promise I have not started my holiday weekend yet, if you get my drift. Veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of this show. And I would love to get your take on them at 719-247-1313. That's the text and the phone line, by the way. I want to start with the WNBA. And I am really glad that the WNBA, its players, its teams are using this bigger stage they are getting because of Caitlin Clark. Not for beating up on Caitlin Clark or giving her welcome to the league moment, but using it to outshine her. This has been a development over the last few weeks, right? Because early in the season, it was about hard fouls, flagrants, hip checks, hard screens, trying to punish her, to toughen her up, there's been a bunch of different ways that it's been described, but it wasn't good. Right? It wasn't fun to watch. And it didn't put the WNBA in the best light because, of course, that was going on with all this stuff about whether they resented her for the attention that she's getting. But now it's changed. And while the huge crowds last night in Vegas, they moved the game to T-Mobile out of the Aces normal home. And look, the Aces are the best supported outside of the Fever now, of course. But over the last couple of years, the Aces have been by far the best supported WNBA team. They sell out every game, but with Caitlin Clark in town, they had to move it to a bigger venue. But now we just see good basketball. Now we just see other WNBA stars or rising stars showcasing themselves and using this as an opportunity to say, I'm really good too. Right? And not even in a resentful, like, take that Caitlin Clark type of way. I'm not getting that vibe. Even the last time that Angel Reese went up against Caitlin Clark, there was very little, I'm the villain to Caitlin Clark. There was none of that. It was just Angel Reese showcasing how good of a player she is and how much of a star she's going to become here very soon. It's just been, hey, I got more eyeballs on this game. There are more people in the stands. The stands are packed. The crowd is engaged. They're excited. I'm going to use this to my benefit. And last night, Asia Wilson and Kelsey Plum put on an absolute show. Kelsey Plum had 34 points last night. A lot of them, by the way, came with Caitlin Clark as her primary defender. Kelsey Plum was spectacular. Asia Wilson is unbelievable. 28 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 blocks. I'm watching that game last night, and I'm saying, and I tweeted this out, this is a legitimate question. Can anybody in the league guard Asia Wilson? Watching her, it's like watching Nikola Jokic. Now, they play the game in a different way. That's not what I mean. What I mean by that is you watch Asia Wilson play and you go, oh, no one can guard her. It is only her having an off night, which coincidentally she had the other night against DC, that keeps her from putting up a massive stat line. As special as Caitlin Clark is, and as much as she's going to improve, like there are other players, and I'll again look at Kelsey Plum. Plays the same position, was much better than Caitlin Clark last night, and is a better player right now than Caitlin Clark. Asia Wilson is not only the best player in the WNBA. I don't know that there's that small of a gap between her and the next best player. And I certainly don't think across the league there is someone that could go toe-to-toe with her. And she is unguardable. And you couple her with Kelsey Plum and her performance last night, and now the fact that the Aces have Chelsea Gray back, like they look like a team that's getting ready to become a dynasty. But that's what this should have been about the whole time. Right? It should have been about come for Caitlin Clark, stay for Asia Wilson, Kelsey Plum, Jewel Lloyd, Brianna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu. That's what this was always supposed to be about. Like the WNBA had a good thing going. And not very many people were paying attention. And now they were going to pay attention because Caitlin Clark was coming into the league, showcase how good you are. And all we got early on in the season is coaches sending out passive-aggressive tweets and players hip-checking her and hitting her in the head and refusing to answer questions about her. And it was not a great tone for the league to set when so many, and yes, they would call them casuals, but that's who you want, right? If you're any business, that's who you want. You want the casual people. You want the people that aren't already locked in to start patronizing your business. In elections, independent voters, that's what they talk about, right? That's where you win. You got your base. And heaven knows, with the base of the two political parties as they are, there's very little that will make them go across the aisle. It's the people in the middle. Those are the people that you want to attract. Those are the people you want to bring in. And they were getting them because of Caitlin Clark. And a lot of those people came in with a great affinity for Caitlin Clark. So when their first impression of the WNBA is this league that looks like the NBA in the late 80s, and every team's going up against Caitlin Clark and acting like the bad boy Pistons, it's not a good first impression. But after all that kind of got out of the way, and I don't know what the catalyst was, I don't know if they got tired of it. I don't know if the commissioner sent out a secret memo. I don't know what it was, but I'm telling you, the last few weeks of the WNBA have been so much better than the first few weeks. Asia Wilson last night on SportsCenter said early on it was a little gossipy. So clearly she has no problem with the style of play, like maybe I do. But she's right? It was the league versus Caitlin Clark. And the players in the league, not Asia Wilson necessarily, but plenty of people in the league perpetuated that. Cheryl Reeve, the head coach of the Minnesota Lynx. Hashtag the W is more than one player. Kennedy Carter taking out Caitlin Clark like she did. They perpetuated it. I don't think it was a league-wide thing, but it was enough players and enough coaches and enough really talking heads that really, as they were trying to say, no, it's not about that, really actually perpetuated that. So I don't know what the catalyst was. I don't know where the change happened, if they were just tired of it, if they realized that this was not them taking advantage of the opportunity they had in front of them. But like last night, I go back to the last matchup between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. The only drama was on the basketball court and who would win the game. And also how bad the Indiana Fever head coach is. That's continuing. But that's a basketball thing. We talk about that in the NBA all the time. It's the drama that we enjoy consuming. It's part of why we like sports. And then we're getting introduced or reintroduced or just seeing more of these players that are further along in their career than Caitlin Clark and are better, showcasing themselves in front of the biggest crowds they've ever played in front of in the WNBA. That's what they should have been doing the whole time, in my opinion. But we're there now, and it's great. It's been awesome. Now, another piece of news that came out yesterday was that the WNBA All-Star voting was finalized, and to no one's surprise, Caitlin Clark. Remember the first time they released it, Asia Wilson was leading Caitlin Clark? I believe when I brought that up on the show, I said, watch Caitlin Clark's army stuff the ballot box, and boy, did they. Caitlin Clark was the leading vote getter from the fan vote with 700,735 votes. Aaliyah Boston, her teammate, was second with 618,680 votes. Asia Wilson finished third, Breanna Stewart fourth, and Angel Reese fifth. And another nod to the Clark effect. Caitlin Clark received more votes this year than every WNBA player received last year. Allow me to say that again. Caitlin Clark this year got more WNBA All-Star votes than the total number of votes cast last year. Yeah, she's still driving the interest. She's still leading the way. She is the league's biggest star. But others are benefiting from it. And that's how you have to look at it. I can benefit from this. And look at Aaliyah Boston. Kelsey Mitchell, I don't think was that far away. I think Kelsey Mitchell, yep, she's on the team. 3 Indiana Fever players are WNBA All-Stars. They're like 7-11 on the year. Tell me that's not the Caitlin Clark effect. That will happen on July 20th. And of course, they'll be taking on Team USA. So some of that ugliness, some of that old gossipy stuff that A'ja Wilson was referring to, it'll come back because Caitlin Clark will be going up against the team that so many people thought she should be on, that being the women's Olympic team. But hopefully it will be more what the league has been the last few weeks. Because you're going to get Caitlin Clark, you're going to get Angel Reese, and then you get Team USA, which has A'ja Wilson and all of those people that were stars in this league before Caitlin Clark got there, all on the same court. And hopefully it's just exciting, high-level basketball. But it will be interesting with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese on the same team because, as Clark pointed out last night, they've never played together before.
I don't think I've ever been her teammate before with even a USA basketball or anything like that. So I know people are going to be really excited about it, but I hope it doesn't take away from everybody else. Like, this is a huge accomplishment for everybody on Team USA and everybody on Team WNBA.
Yeah. Sorry to inform her that it will be so much about her and Angel Reese teaming up, her going against Team USA. It will be about that. Just like every Indiana Fever game, regardless of the opponent, people are tuning in because of Caitlin Clark. That is the biggest story going in. And many times it's the biggest story once the game is over. So she can't control that. It will be about her. It will be about her teaming up with Angel Reese, her going up against Team USA. That's what the All-Star game will be about. And maybe it'll ruffle some feathers, but my advice would be do what Kelsey Plum and A'ja Wilson did last night and just be unstoppable. Be so good that Caitlin Clark somehow becomes secondary. 719-247-1313. If you watched the game last night, love to get your thoughts. Just getting going on this Wednesday edition of the show. Coming up next, the USSF, the United States Soccer Federation, met today. Wonder what that could be about. I have not seen any news on that as of yet, but there is some news coming out of U.S. soccer that I think is not nothing. And I will get to that coming up next. The best pro rodeo cowboys and cowgirls from the U.S., Canada, and Mexico all are coming to Colorado Springs next week, July 9th through the 13th. And with over $1 million in payouts, they'll be riding to win. This is where champions and careers are made. The speed, the excitement, there's no better place to be than an NFR Open at the Pikes Peak or Bust Rodeo. Get your tickets now at pikespeakorbust.org. The U.S. Soccer Federation reportedly met today about something. Could it be this comprehensive the U.S. bowed out of Copa America? Maybe. Or maybe they just, had a meeting about something else planned. But there is no word on whether they will replace Greg Berhalter. Meanwhile, today, two things of some significance, and I'll let you judge how significant these two things are. The first thing is that every possible supporters group that there is for United States men's soccer came out today, including and most notably the American Outlaws, and said, we want Greg Berhalter fired. I think there were supporters groups that just, were organized today just so they could add their voice to the calls for Greg Berhalter to be fired. That is significant. Because supporters groups are important. This is not like, you and a few of your buddies who are Nuggets fans calling for Calvin Booth to be fired. American Outlaws and these other supporters groups, they have a real voice, with all due respect. They do have a voice, and they're using that voice to say Greg Berhalter should be fired. In unison, all together, unanimously, they want him out. And then you get this piece of news today that BJ Callahan, who is Berhalter's top lieutenant, is leaving to take the job at Nashville SC of MLS. Now, in today's press release from U.S. Soccer, they were very quick to point out that this had already been in the works, and the schedule was that they were going to announce it regardless of what happened at Copa America, that they were going to keep this under wraps, and once Copa America was over, they were going to announce it. If you believe them, then I don't think it's quite the indicator of what's going on. Like that maybe Greg Berhalter is going to be fired, so BJ Callahan is trying to get out while he can. But let's not pretend that Copa America, as disappointing as it was, let's not pretend that the drum beats haven't been there since basically the World Cup for Greg Berhalter to be relieved of his duties. So while I can take that at face value and say, okay, he was always going to take that job, but if things were going great with the U.S. men's national team, would he have taken it? Could he have decided to take this job because he wasn't seeing the progress that we're all now saying we're not seeing? In fact, the most positive results that the U.S. has gotten since the World Cup were when BJ Callahan was in charge and they beat Mexico in Canada at Nations League when the USSF was trying to decide whether to bring back Berhalter or not. So I don't think it means that something's imminent or necessarily Berhalter's getting fired, but the fact that Callahan would be willing to leave even for a head coaching gig in Nashville, I don't think is nothing. I don't think is completely unrelated to the direction that U.S. men's soccer is going. But the supporters groups coming out in unison today, it cannot be construed as anything other than significant. Now, we've heard a lot over the last few days from past members of the U.S. men's national team, Alexi Lawless, of course, Clint Dempsey, of course, because they were on Fox's coverage, but Eric Winalda and Hercules Gomez are fighting with each other on social media. It's tearing United States men's soccer apart. All this Greg Berhalter stuff. But Tim Howard, famous goalkeeper, the most famous goalkeeper, with all due respect to Brad Guzan, tweeted out today that not only does he think that U.S. soccer should go visit Jurgen Klopp, former Liverpool head coach, and try to convince him to take the gig, Tim Howard believes he himself can convince Jurgen Klopp to take the U.S. men's national team job. Now, this feels a little Dennis Rodman going over to North Korea type stuff, like we're going to trust a pro athlete to go, but a little bit different of a situation. That was just the first thought that came into my head. I don't know why. I say let him. I would love to hear that a delegation of U.S. soccer with Tim Howard in tow went to go try and convince Jurgen Klopp to be the next U.S. men's national team coach. If he's going to offer, if he is that confident that he can deliver Jurgen Klopp, I say let him. You need all the help you can get, because I don't think Jurgen Klopp is going to be sold easily. I don't think he's sitting there waiting by his phone, rubbing his hands together like, oh, I hope they call me. It's going to take a lot to get Jurgen Klopp to leave a retirement that he felt like he was very much looking forward to, and to pull him back in to take this job. Because Tim Howard also noted, and he wrote something on the Copa America exit today, he actually thinks that the players bear more responsibility than maybe a lot of people are saying. Now, he agrees Berhalter should be out, and he's offered to help convince Jurgen Klopp to take the gig. But he points out that the players have a lot of blame that they need to shoulder for this. And I agree with him. I do. Nobody is saying that it's just Greg Berhalter's fault. Well, some people are. Most people looking at it with a critical eye are saying it's not just Berhalter. But even some of the problems with the players can be directly attributed to him. But I said this yesterday. U.S. soccer, if they're serious about trying to reach whatever ceiling U.S. soccer may have, they have to remove one of the two variables: players or the coach. Okay? Because we've seen enough of this group of players in their exact roles with Greg Berhalter as the head coach. That much is abundantly clear. I don't know how many American soccer players there are available that you could swap out with the current team. It's always easier to fire the coach than the players. I get that. But I don't know that there are a lot of players that people are saying, if this guy was a part of the team and if this guy was a part of the team. So this is kind of what they got for 2026. This is kind of the group. That means the other variable that you need to remove is Greg Berhalter. And you bring in Jurgen Klopp, continue to say his name, to put it out in the universe, to hope that that is the route that U.S. soccer goes and that he agrees to the gig. But any qualified, decorated head coach that the U.S. can be fortunate enough to get should be allowed to look at this roster with as critical of an eye as he would like and decide maybe there are some players who need to go out. Maybe there's some players playing in MLS that need to come in. But give him that. It just, everybody, I go back to what Carly Lloyd said after the loss to Uruguay. Everybody feels just so comfortable. Everybody feels comfortable. U.S. soccer feels comfortable. Greg Berhalter feels comfortable. The players feel comfortable. Somebody needs to come in and make people feel uncomfortable because they're really evaluating them. And if they aren't up to snuff, they're not going to be a part of the World Cup. So there is a distinct possibility that a new coach comes in and U.S. soccer does not do any better than they would have done under Greg Berhalter, but at least then we'll know, hey, it's the players. Now, I doubt that that's the scenario. I seriously doubt it. But it could be the players. It could be equal. It could be a little bit more the players. But clearly, Greg Berhalter is not the right guy to evaluate these players or to get them to step up, to get some of the poor decision-making from Sergino Dest and Tim Weah, coach it out of them. Maybe this group is not our golden generation. But I sure as heck don't trust Greg Berhalter to make that call. So really, whatever way you slice it, they need a fresh set of eyes, if nothing else. And coaches have been let go for that exact reason before. Not that they were terrible at their jobs, just that different voice. How often? Different voice. Paul Maurice stepped down from the Winnipeg Jets a few years ago. They need a new voice. My voice isn't working. Paul Maurice was a terrific coach, as he showed the last 2 years in Florida. How often in sports is it that a coach's voice falls on deaf ears? That a new voice is needed, a new set of eyes. It happens in sports all the time. And there's certainly nothing that Greg Berhalter has done that makes you think that's not the case, at the very least. If not him being an active participant in sabotaging whatever this U.S. men's soccer team is capable of doing. So U.S. soccer, get Tim Howard on the phone. If he has a Memphis number, I do know the area code because the soccer team he owns bears those numbers. So it starts with the 901, Find out the other 7 digits, call him and say, let's go. Let's ride. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, we have reached the final of our Goat of Goats tournament. I'll just tell you now that Michael Jordan did get past Tiger Woods with, I think it was 66% of the vote, setting up a showdown between Muhammad Ali and Michael Jordan. We'll discuss it next here on Extra Sports 1300. It has come down to this. Our Goat of Goats tournament has reached its finale. And it will be Muhammad Ali against Michael Jordan for our Goat of Goats. Who is the greatest GOAT? Who is the goatest of the GOATs? MJ or Ali? I had an inkling that we would be here. I campaigned for Wayne Gretzky against Muhammad Ali, but I thought there was a lot of early sentiment when we launched this thing that Muhammad Ali was going to win, and now we'll find out. But I had zero doubt that Michael Jordan would make it from one side of the bracket. And I've thrown out resumes for these athletes over weeks. And if you've been following this, if you've been listening to the show, you know it almost by heart now. Everything that Michael Jordan has done, everything that Muhammad Ali has done. Now it's just, who's your GOAT? Right? Forget resumes. Forget trying to decide whether defending your heavyweight title 19 times is more impressive than winning 6 championships in 6 tries. To me, this is gut. This is just your gut feel. If I said the GOAT, who pops into your head? That's where I think we're at right now. And for me, that's Michael Jordan. Everything that the word GOAT used to be an acronym, now it's basically a word, means it's Michael Jordan. Dominance, borderline perfection, certainly when it comes to NBA finals. Wanting to emulate that as great as Muhammad Ali is, I never once in my life tried to emulate Muhammad Ali. I admire Muhammad Ali. But I never tried to emulate him. Tried to emulate Michael Jordan. I grew up watching Michael Jordan. I didn't grow up watching Muhammad Ali. And that's a part of it. Right? When you're a kid and when you're not, sullied and all that kind of stuff, and as you get older, right? You look at things more critically, and when you're in love with everything. Right? And everything impresses you. You're in awe of everything. That's when I was watching Michael Jordan. And I can't say that I wanted him to win every NBA Finals, but watching him was amazing. And the reinforcement of everything I thought Michael Jordan was during the Last Dance documentary. Yes, I know it was skewed. Yes, it was basically Michael Jordan telling the story of those Bulls teams. But even those moments, I took that personally. And him getting emotional at times, talking about how much he wanted to win and how much that may have rubbed people the wrong way, cost him relationships with teammates, with people in his life. Like, he's everything you want a competitor to be. He is the greatest basketball player of all time. He has had an impact on his sport that very few athletes can say that they have. He's iconic. And that doesn't mean some of these things don't describe Muhammad Ali. But if we were doing word association or visualization and somebody said, who's the GOAT, I say Michael Jordan. And having debates over the years about him versus LeBron has just reinforced it, because over and over and over again, been saying LeBron can't be the GOAT. He has never been, he will never be. It's Michael Jordan. And I would put every athlete up to that test and say it's Michael Jordan. So that's where I'm voting. And it's crafted by my own experience, by who I would want to be, who I tried to be when I was a kid, who had a more profound impact on my life as a sports fan. And yeah, the resume is good enough for that as well. Those polls will be posted shortly on our social media platforms. You don't have to rush to get there, because with no show the next couple of days, we'll just let the polls go until Monday, and we'll reveal the winner of that. And again, I very much appreciate this. Was a lot of fun. I don't do a lot of these bit type things, and I don't say that because I think they're dumb. I had a lot of fun doing this. But it's just my mind doesn't work that way. You know, maybe that's some lack of creativity, but I don't normally do things like this. But this kind of concept, although it's probably not new, was a lot of fun doing it. And the number of votes that we have gotten through all these polls, the amount of interaction, the arguments we've gotten into, it's been fun. So I don't know what the hell we're going to do after this. But it'll be about time for training camp, right? 4-day holiday weekend, come back, see if the Nuggets have done anything. You know, that's another week. And then basically Broncos training camp will be here, and then it'll be football season. We'll have plenty to discuss. So at Extra Sports 1300, Facebook, X, Instagram, Ali versus Jordan. Cast your vote here shortly or sometime during your holiday weekend. And if you have thoughts on that matchup, please feel free to send them in 719-247-1313. Talked about Greg Berhalter, still for now being the head coach of the U.S. men's national team. And I got a fun little question for you. I'll talk about the other side of this question next. What happens first? U.S. Soccer makes a decision on Greg Berhalter's future, or the Denver Nuggets do anything in free agency? Ponder. We'll discuss the Nuggets coming up next on Extra Sports 1300. Drive Time Sports, Ryan Kaufman with you on this 4th of July Eve. Glad to have you. Reminder, you can watch the show live on a daily basis if you follow us on social media, whether that be Facebook, X, or Instagram, or YouTube. The handle is all the same, at XTRA Sports 1300. Extra Sports 1300. Today, the Minnesota Timberwolves made two moves, actually. Earlier today, they signed Joe Ingles, the ageless one, to be reunited with Rudy Gobert and Mike Conley, which is fun. And they've also brought PJ Dozier, former Nugget, into the fold. PJ was, I believe, playing overseas, and now he will be a part of the Minnesota Timberwolves. With the moves made today by Minnesota, there are two teams in the National Basketball Association that have not added or re-upped anybody since free agency has begun. And those two teams are the Memphis Grizzlies and the Denver Nuggets. Let that sink in. Since the start of NBA free agency, wasn't that long ago, and maybe that's what Calvin Booth is saying, but most of the business that's going to be conducted this offseason has been conducted. Memphis, Denver. But at least Memphis can say they're getting back John Morant. Right? That's their big offseason acquisition, a healthy Ja Morant. Can the Nuggets say that? I know that Jamal Murray hopefully makes it out of the Olympics alive and is not hurt for the Denver Nuggets upcoming season. But he was there during Game 7. Since the start of free agency, only Memphis and Denver have essentially done nothing to improve their roster. That is a problem. And every day that goes by, and I don't know, there's some rumors that Calvin Booth is in Europe or whatever. Not even getting into all that. I don't care where he is. It is, he's got Zoom. We all got Zoom. The pandemic, we can do business anywhere on earth. Isn't that a whole cottage industry now of people who don't work in the same place that they live or whatever? So I don't care where he is necessarily, but I am concerned about what he's doing or what he's not doing. Because even if you can get on board to some extent over letting Kentavious Caldwell-Pope go because of that dreaded second luxury tax apron, even if you're like, you know what, as much as I like to see KCP back, and as much as I say that Christian Brown is not better than Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, or maybe you think he will be, you still expected more out of this offseason, right? Didn't you? Maybe you came to terms long ago with the idea that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope would not be returning, but I promise you did not say that Deron Holmes is the only acquisition the Nuggets need this offseason. Because that would just be flat out wrong. And I don't think you're wrong. I think you know what you were talking about. when you say that the Nuggets needed to do more this offseason than simply drafting DeRon Holmes. And by the way, they didn't even get a second-round pick. They couldn't even drafted Bronny if they wanted to, because they felt so strongly about DeRon Holmes that they traded up to get him. And that's fine. This is not an indictment of the DeRon Holmes thing. Everybody had draft picks. I think everybody did. But even the teams that may have not had draft picks, guess what? They brought in players or re-signed players. Nuggets have done neither. And I don't know what the conversation is down in Memphis right now. But I promise you that the urgency that is being felt amongst the Grizzly fan base is not nearly what it is here. And how could it be? Fear of loss is creeping into this fan base. Loss of the chance at a dynasty. Loss of a chance to maximize Nikola Jokic's prime. It's a palpable feeling of fear. That last year was it. And fine, you don't want to re-sign Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. You're not better by not signing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. But how you could show that you could be better in other ways, right? And I said this. Maybe the bet is they lose a little bit off the starting five, and they use the ability, the what everybody wants. Everyone is, and the Nuggets aren't the only team scared of the second tax apron. But they sure seem like one of them. But fine, you wanted this flexibility. Do something with it. What happened to Russell Westbrook? Why is that such a difficult piece of business to figure out? You have flexibility. Are you not willing to part with the 2031 first-round pick to get Russell Westbrook? Is that what this is about? I threw out the idea or the feeling I had that the Nuggets were working on something. But this is an industry, sports, that there are very few secrets. Right? I mean, really look at it. When is the last time a move was made that you're like, whoa, I had no idea something like this was going to happen? So I apologize if I don't believe that Calvin Booth is that good. If he's that good, then the CIA needs to sign him up and poach him from the Denver Nuggets if he's that good at keeping secrets. It's not that the Nuggets haven't even done anything. It's that we don't even hear that they're doing anything, that they're up to anything. All we got was interest. And it's my least favorite report out there. Right? I hate when I see tweets and reports of teams being interested. Because if I was Calvin Booth, you know who I would be interested in? I'd be interested in swinging the deal for Victor Wembanyama. I'm interested in that. I'm intrigued by it. What does that mean? It means ultimately nothing. Interest means nothing. The Nuggets being interested in Russell Westbrook is proof of that. Their interest hasn't gone anywhere, and it's not like the guy's on a max contract. And every day that goes by, whether Calvin Booth is up to something or not, every day that goes by is a greater chance that whatever he comes back with is going to be met with almost universal vitriol. You kept us waiting. A whole week of free agency went by. Klay Thompson went to the Dallas Mavericks, all this stuff with the Lakers, even the Phoenix Suns, for God's sakes, are doing things. The Phoenix Suns are making moves. Every day that goes by, every minute that goes by, means that there's less of a chance that what Calvin Booth is cooking up or contemplating or working on is met with shoulder shrugs and maybe hatred, because it's almost to the point now where he's got to have something massive, like, I don't know, like the Paul George deal that he apparently nixed. Ooh, they're looking at getting Paul George. They didn't get him. That's a bummer. But at least they're thinking big. And then the next thing was Russell Westbrook, which is not nearly as exciting as Paul George, but at least it's something, and you can talk yourself into Russell Westbrook being a good fit. And I think he would be. And then that fizzled and went away. And then here comes, and this isn't a report regarding the Denver Nuggets, just this stuff about DeMar DeRozan comes out, and then Nuggets fans on social media united in, okay, go get DeMar DeRozan. A lifeline has been thrown to the Denver Nuggets. They have been doing absolutely nothing. They have been hoarding their flexibility that apparently was so important to them that they would voluntarily give up on the best starting five in basketball. But here is this lifeline, and it's DeMar DeRozan, a longtime quality player, plays the same position as KCP, that is apparently willing to sign for a 1-year deal in order to re-enter the free agent market. Silence. Nothing. You hear the heat. You haven't even heard the Nuggets tied to DeMar DeRozan. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, as much as I hate the interest tweets, there is kind of a step further, and that's what you're seeing from the Heat. Oh, he would be interested in going to the Heat. The Heat would be interested in having him. At least there's mutual interest. It's not just one-way interest. There's no interest. As far as we know, there is zero interest between the Denver Nuggets and DeMar DeRozan. DeRozan doesn't want to come here. The Nuggets don't want him. There's not even the interest tweet. We're not even getting that. It is absolute silence. And even yesterday, me leaving the possibility open that he's working on something big, that should tell you exactly the effect this silence has. That 24 hours later, I'm like, yeah, I don't know that they're doing up to anything. Not anything significant. They can't. They're waiting for Dario Saric to be done with Olympic qualifying. Is that? This is a team that is on a short list of winning an NBA title. And yes, even if they essentially ran it back without KCP, they would still be in that mix. But what Nuggets fans want now is a sign that you are still actively trying to win and not just hoping that you win. Right? Now it seems like the Nuggets are just hoping. They're not going for it. You have to be going for it, doing something. And they're doing nothing. Them in Memphis, nothing. We're all getting ready to head to our holiday weekend. Calvin Booth has been on his holiday since free agency opened. You want to give crap to Aaron Rodgers for going to Egypt during mandatory minicamp? Bring that same energy to Calvin Booth. He wasn't at Ball Arena the other day introducing Deron Holmes, his new prize draft pick. This is the mandatory part of the calendar for a general manager. We want to see GMs twice. During the summer, during free agency, and around the trade deadline. The rest of the time, we don't need to see you. There's only 2 times on the calendar where Calvin Booth's attendance is required, and this is one of them, and he's nowhere to be found. Not even his aura, not even his nothing. And everyone's dragging Aaron Rodgers. What's the difference? And I can't imagine, even though the Kevin Durant signing by the Golden State Warriors was famously announced on the 4th of July, I can't imagine we get a piece of Nuggets news during the holiday weekend. And maybe we'll get sidetracked a little bit doing our holiday thing. But when we come back on Monday and the Nuggets still haven't done anything, I may not even do a show. I'll just read tweets all day. I'll just read tweets from angry Nuggets fans all day. That's going to be far more entertaining than anything I can bring to the table on Monday. If the Nuggets do nothing through an entire first week of free agency, and we're already mad enough that we're getting back to work after a holiday weekend, that's going to be pure entertainment. I wonder how they are feeling in Memphis right now, because a lot of teams in the NBA, only 2 have been this idle. And one of them is supposedly trying to become a dynasty. Show us. 719-247-1313. I can't say, well, it could be worse necessarily, but there is another NBA team that is not receiving rave reviews from the business they have done, but they did do something today. They retained someone, and even though it's not a surprise, it's still more than the Nuggets have done. That's next here on Extra Sports 1300. This is your last chance to experience the Switchbacks 4th of July Star Spangled Fireworks Spectacular in the heart of downtown Colorado Springs. It will be the most immersive fireworks show in Colorado tomorrow night. Be there at 5 p.m. to get a special Switchbacks Light Up baton provided by Pikes Peak National Bank. Get your tickets now at switchbacksfc.com. Now, I was out at Switchbacks training today, getting the lowdown from James Chambers, his thoughts on tomorrow night's matchup with FC Tulsa. And I spoke with Daniel, who is in the Switchbacks ticketing office, and he told me his job is just about done. He may not have to come into work tomorrow because all of his tickets will be sold. So I will urge you to not wait till tomorrow. Not make it a last-minute thing, or else you may miss out. But I would like to present another way of doing it, maybe a first option, and then the second option would be going to switchbacksfc.com. How about you just win 4 tickets from me right now? So 4 I got left. I got nothing else after this. And I can't help you. I can't help you with Daniel. You gotta buy him from him. 13th texter at 719-247-1313 to text Switchbacks in their name will win 4 tickets to tomorrow night's 4th of July Spectacular at Widener Field. You don't even have to thank me or come by and say hi to me while you were there. Just go, take your tickets, bring who you want, enjoy yourself. Consider it a thank you for putting up with me on a daily basis on this show. So 13 texter, 719-247-1313. Text Switchbacks and your name. This is not a surprise, but again, compared to the Denver Nuggets, I would take a not so surprising move from the Denver Nuggets, because right now you're getting no moves from the Denver Nuggets whatsoever. The Los Angeles Lakers, or actually, let me phrase this a different way. Let me phrase it more accurately. LeBron has decided to grace the Los Angeles Lakers with his presence for another 2 years, potentially. It's really a 1 year with a player option for year 2. It is a deal today that is worth, you don't care how much it's worth, but it is a 2-year, $104 million max contract. And with that, and also the recent signings of the Lakers draft picks, Dalton Connect, and the other guy, the Los Angeles Lakers are finished unless somebody is dumb enough to take on D'Angelo Russell. Their business is done for the offseason. Reportedly, they will have no roster spots other than 2-way deals, which Bronny did not get a 2-way deal. More on that in a moment. And even if they were to want to bring in somebody, they would only be able to bring them in on a veterans minimum, which is not what a lot of veterans would like to take. And they would have to force somebody on their current roster out in order to make it happen. You tell me that LeBron James doesn't win. Literally by signing, he have said, now it is done and you can't do anything else. You didn't get the guys I wanted. I will give you zero flexibility moving forward to add anybody. Any doubt who runs that organization? And look, it's beyond debate. I actually find it quite shocking, honestly, that there are as many media pundits out there making the case that, well, if they didn't have to play the Nuggets, it's like, oh, Nuggets fans did that a little bit. Well, if they didn't have to play the Minnesota Timberwolves, then, like, look what you saw against Minnesota. Right? Do you really think, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that they would have beaten the Dallas Mavericks? Let's give Dallas a little credit, right? And let's certainly give Boston credit. But I hear all the time, if the Lakers, if they didn't have to run up against the Nuggets, they could be. I just don't buy that. I don't buy that. And I think LeBron, for all of his faults, for all of the things you criticize him for, he does have a decent basketball mind, and he does have the level of self-awareness to know that this Laker team, whether they meet up with the Denver Nuggets at some point in next year's playoffs or not, are not good enough to come out of the West, let alone win a title. And that's why he delayed signing his contract in hopes that not just that they would make a few tweaks, a few upgrades here and there, that they would make a huge deal. That's not just LeBron necessarily wanting to play with another one of his buddies. I don't know how many buddies he has left that he could have played with. He wanted the Lakers to make a significant move because he knows that the Lakers, as currently constructed, are not good enough to come out of the West. And you would be disrespecting the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Dallas Mavericks by saying that Denver is the only thing that stood in their way. How many times do they have to end up in the play-in before people look at the Lakers and say, well, gosh, maybe they just aren't good enough? They're not good enough. They're not a bad team. This isn't a bad team. Okay? If you make it even into the play-in in the West, you're pretty dang good. You would run roughshod through much of the East as a play-in team in the West. Okay? So this is, it's on a different level than the Nuggets, but it's a similar thing. Like, yes, I know that losing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope does not make the Nuggets so much worse that it's impossible for them to win another title. I'm just saying they're not as good without him. And that means they are a skosh less likely to win a title. And in a highly competitive West, where I don't know if you've noticed, there are plenty of teams that are getting better, may make the difference. So go down a tier to the Los Angeles Lakers and acknowledge that LeBron, by wanting them to sign another star or bring in another star, should be some indication that LeBron feels like the team, even with Bronny, is not good enough to get out of the West. And by taking every dime that he is entitled to, and I'll say this, as critical as I am of LeBron James, he has earned every penny that he is going to get paid. But by taking every penny, he is saying that if you simply get another 3-and-D guy for our bench unit, or get a backup big for Anthony Davis, or you get this, or you get that, these little tweaks, it's not going to be enough. So why am I going to sacrifice my money so you can make a slight tweak to the roster that's still not going to get me another title in LA? He is done winning championships. He's done. But now he has his son to pour into, to be able to play with his son, to mentor his son, to tutor his son, to bring his son along. That's what he's invested in. And at some point in all of our careers, Not that all of us are fortunate to work with our own children, but at some point, most people during their career reach a point where they're like, you know what? I'm going to set up the next. I'm going to mentor somebody. I'm going to take someone under my wing and pour into them. And it's not so much about what I can accomplish. Now, the person that I'm talking about with LeBron is not anybody. It's his son. And he certainly has not done the Lakers many favors over the years to allow them to set themselves up for success post LeBron James. But I think not that he's ever going to readily admit he can't win a title, and it may not be something that is at the front of his mind every day, but somewhere in his head, he knows this team's not that close. And the only way he is willing to give up any money is if they got a needle-moving, significant piece. And now that Rob Pelinka couldn't do that, he's like, I'm taking every dime. And I'm just going to enjoy my last couple of years in the NBA. I will do everything I can to help the Lakers win on my shoulders. Like, as a player, I will do whatever I can. And I will do everything I can to make sure that this second round pick of yours puts in the work necessary and improves so he can carry your franchise for years to come. But barring something unforeseen, the Lakers are done with their business this offseason, and now we can evaluate their roster with Bronny, a full-fledged member of the Lakers. No two-way deal for Bronny. He's getting a full-fledged rookie contract. And as I've said many a time, I am nothing if not fair. The deal Bronny got is the exact same deal that the Denver Nuggets gave Nikola Jokic. Okay? So I know there's a lot of this that stinks, a lot of this you're upset about. I'm just telling you that you don't have to go this far. And Nikola Jokic is a perfect example because no one had any idea how good this guy was going to be. Okay? And no, Bronny is not going to be the next Nikola Jokic, if for only the simple fact that we got to see Bronny get drafted and it wasn't during a Taco Bell commercial. That is unrealistic expectations for any second round pick from now on in the NBA to say, well, it could be Nikola Jokic. It's like everybody gets drafted in seven. Well, could be Tom Brady. No, stop. You're just setting yourself for disappointment or putting unrealistic expectations on these people that barely eke their way into the league. So, got to be fair. Nuggets gave Nikola Jokic the same contract. All of the other circumstances that went into Bronny James being a Laker, open season on, criticize away. But it's not unprecedented what the Lakers did in terms of the contract they gave out. Second round picks have gotten similar contracts before. And there's plenty to pick apart. Like, you don't need to add another thing. You got all the ammunition you need. I hope it works out for Bronny. I do. I really do. This has nothing to do with him. And that's what's so unfair about it. Now, some of the criticism of him as a player, that's him. But all these other circumstances, not him. It's his dad. It's Rich Paul. It's not the fact that the Lakers gave him this contract. It's that the Lakers were the only team that was ever going to draft him and was ever going to give him this contract. And not even necessarily because Bronny didn't deserve to get drafted. It was because Rich Paul told every other team, don't you dare draft him. But at least the Lakers retain somebody. Nuggets are just losing people. So they got that going for them. 719-24-7-1313. Take a look at weather and traffic. Got to imagine the traffic starting to get a little rough out there. I don't know. I'm not looking at traffic. Coyote is, and he'll let you know here shortly what the roads look like, and I'll be back after that. I'm sure you're focused on the Hall this week, but just know next week the NFR Open at the Pikes Peak or Bust Rodeo gets going July 9th through the 13th. It's the best pro rodeo cowboys and cowgirls from the U.S. and Canadian circuits, plus national champions from Mexico, and they're competing for over $1 million in payouts. High stakes. This is where champions and careers are made. Get your tickets now, Pikes Peak or Bust.org. Congratulations to Jason, won the 4 tickets for the Switchbacks match tomorrow night. And if you would like to go, I have no tickets left, but I think the Switchbacks have switchbacksfc.com is where you go to the text line. Two things that get the text line hopping: contests and anything about LeBron. Few of you weighing in before you head off to your holiday weekend. So let me get through these. Eli says Lakers brass are showing to be the Rockies of the NBA. That's harsh. In the sense that they don't care about winning anymore. They just want butts in the seats and make money. And now they can't even do what I've wanted for years and trade LeBron. The only good thing they did was not get Harden per LeBron's request. It's hard to be a Laker fan with this mess. It's hard because, and this is not, maybe I'm giving LeBron too much credit in this, but I was thinking about this. So we talk about the nepotism involved with the draft pick of Bronny and the hiring of JJ Redick. We're so hyper focused on that we forget that this entire franchise's business model for years has been based on nepotism. I know Eli will know this, but do you know how Rob Pelinka got the job with the Los Angeles Lakers? Did he go to basketball GM school? Mm-mm. He was Kobe's agent. Do you think Jeannie Buss got the Lakers because she built up her own business and made billions of dollars to be able to buy the Los Angeles Lakers? Oh, no. The Lakers wanted to stay in the family, so Jeannie Buss inherited the team from her father. The most important people in this organization have nepotism as a core belief. And LeBron and Rich Paul are smart enough to exploit it because guess what? LeBron doesn't care that you're upset. He doesn't care that you're accusing his son of being a Nepo hire or Nepo pick and JJ. He doesn't care. I don't know if this was the plan. Like, hey, can we find the most gullible like franchise that will just bend over backwards to every whim we have and pointed out the Lakers? I feel like Hollywood was a big draw, but I don't know. I wouldn't put it past him. Say what you will about LeBron James. The guy is calculated. The guy has a plan and he's thinking years in the future. He didn't get to where he is in his life, in his career, by just doing things on a whim. Everything that he does is intentional. And maybe choosing the Lakers over the Clippers, because last time I checked, Clippers are located very close to movie studios where Space Jam could be made. Why didn't you go to the Clippers? Probably giving him a little too much credit to go that far. But he's gotten into an organization where nepotism runs rampant. And just continued the legacy. But they do have a title to show for it. It is going to be a fascinating conversation when LeBron James retires. Because it is almost going to be two legacies. The legacy of him as a player is arguably the greatest ever. Right? Look at his resume, what he was able to do with lesser teams, dragging them to the NBA finals, the 3-1 comeback, all this kind of stuff. As a player, he will have one of the best careers ever. But how much of this other stuff will creep into it? When he initially retires, a lot of it. Over time, don't know. There are some criticisms and things like that other athletes in that franchise's organization have been able to move on from. It's not discussed that much anymore. I wonder if we'll ever get there with LeBron. And he's not committing high crimes here. These are just sports crimes. I don't know what you would call them. Not good. It's not worth celebrating. He has a career that should be celebrated right there up with anybody. But this other stuff leaves himself open to as much criticism as any player we've ever seen. Brett says that Bronny beat me in Nerf basketball. Well, there you go. He deserves to be drafted 55th. I know how you ball on the Nerf hoop, Brett. Back of the closet tour, 8-7 overtime. I'm 61. He's 12. So I don't know what other endorsement you need. Bronny deserves to be in the league. Tom says to say Bronny didn't get drafted just because Rich Paul told teams not to draft him is crazy. Now, let me clarify. What I am saying, and I talked about this yesterday, I'm saying we can all have our thoughts about how good Bronny is. Does he deserve to be drafted? Does he not? We can have all those, but we'll never truly know whether he would have been drafted. For whatever reason, we don't truly know, because we know he wasn't going to be a first-round pick, right? That's an unalienable truth that he was not a first-round pick. But Flyers are taken all the time in the second round, right? My point is, I agree with you that I think Bronny was only drafted because the Lakers were the only team that was going to take him. Like, I agree with you, but what I'm saying is we can't be 100% sure because Bronny wasn't available to get drafted by everybody. Rich Paul told them not to because he would go to Australia. I'm sure that the interest level was not high. Like, I get what you're saying, and I agree with you. But it's another wrinkle on top of it that Rich Paul and LeBron James orchestrated every aspect of this. I'm not trying to stick up for Bronny. I'm not trying to stick up for LeBron or Rich Paul. I think it makes them look worse. They should be on their knees thanking any organization that would draft Bronny. But they knew the Lakers would do it, and they wanted to make sure that nobody else could. So we don't 100% know. We could 99.999999999% know. But he wasn't available to everybody. That much is clear. And that is a disservice to Bronny, because what other conclusion can he come to than to say Well, he's not good enough to get drafted. Lakers just took him because of blah, 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 blah. Because another team didn't draft him, but they weren't allowed to. I mean, look, he's the 55th pick in the draft. 55th. Bring to me who did not go drafted that deserved it. We could have the debate. But to me, we don't even need to go into it. I agree with you. I don't think he would have been drafted. But I would have been intrigued. I would have liked to see if another team, just one other team, because that's what they say about the draft, right? It only takes one team. I would have loved to see if one other team would have seen something in Bronny. Anybody. Because then we're like, well, we know the Lakers were going to get him for all these reasons, but hey, the Atlanta Hawks drafted him. We don't get that. Albert says Lakers fans are nuts. Didn't they win a championship 4 years ago? The Lakers have made the playoffs in consecutive years, albeit through a loophole every year since. The team wins. How many number 2 draft picks last 4 years or more? Be grateful, Laker fans, that your team is amazing. Be thankful you're not a Jazz, New Orleans, Orlando, Memphis, or Brooklyn fan. But there's some truth to that, right? But I think what Eli and other Laker fans are feeling is we got this greatest player in the world or greatest player of his generation, and we won a title. And now it's like we got all this other stuff that is going so wrong and making our franchise look so bad that it's hard to, like, be honest. If you're a Broncos fan, hasn't enough time gone by? Hasn't enough other embarrassment happened where Super Bowl 50 doesn't keep you as warm and cozy at night? The Nuggets and the Avalanche last championships don't do that for me, and they happened like 10 minutes ago. And it's not nearly what the Lakers are dealing with. We all have different levels of suffering, right? You're right. Lakers win more now, even with all their problems, than a lot of other franchises. And there is reason to, appreciate that. But look at the conversation. They have just been dumped on for weeks. And it's hard. It's hard to stand up and support your team when all this stuff is going on. There are spoiled fan bases everywhere, right? It's not probably what Eli grew up with, not what a lot of Lakers fans grew up with. We'll have to leave it there. Got to head out. But I very much appreciate your patronage. Don't forget to vote on our GOAT of GOATs poll, Michael Jordan or Muhammad Ali. That'll stay open through the weekend if you're not in a position to vote on it just yet. No show tomorrow or Friday. So the only time I will talk to you between now and Monday is if you tune into the Switchbacks game tomorrow night at 7. I would love for you to do that. If not, enjoy your holiday weekend, and we'll reconvene on Monday and see what will either one of these things happen. Will either Greg Berhalter be fired, or will the Nuggets make a move? Can't wait to find out. See ya.